Chapter 6. Samil spent the night in a cave on the river bank. The water, though murky and not salty, offered some comfort to her. Still, she couldn't push her mother out of her mind. She ached to return home, but as long as she stayed away, there was a chance that her mother could still be alive. If she came home and found her dead, though. Whimpering, Samil curled tightly into a ball. This cave was not as warm as home. Although her parents were not able to find a volcano as they would have preferred when they left the Dragon Isles, at least the cave was toasty during all but the very coldest months. Samil closed her eyes and fell asleep. She dreamed of home, and bronze eggs hatching, and humans vanishing suddenly from Malakrin. Samil awoke to a rumbling in her belly. She had not taken any animals from the town as she had planned. Maybe now was a good time to try some of the creatures she'd seen yesterday in the fields. Some had thick white fur, while others were white with black spots. Samil thought the fur looked rather icky, like eating dried seaweed. Perhaps she should try them in any case. The few plants she tried were bitter and did little to assuage her hunger. She would fill her belly, then continue her search for the humans responsible for her mother's injuries. She had no idea what she would do with them when she caught them. Perhaps it might be satisfying to breathe on them and watch them choke so hard they bent double. Samil emerged from the cave and began to walk back to the village. She thought about flying, but decided she would see prey better on the ground, especially in the forest. Walking through the forest was very much like being underwater. The light filtering through the leaves created rippling patterns like waves. The wind moved the branches just like water did. Underwater there were fish. Here there were birds. Samil watched as a flock of them flew out of the trees ahead of her. They were pretty to watch. When fish acted like that, something was after them. What was chasing the birds? Even though Samila thought she could handle anything in this land, she thought that perhaps now was the time to observe, not go barreling into something unknown. Her wounds from yesterday were minor, but they still stung. Samila closed her eyes, muttered, "Maruma Saya," and felt a pop and a rushing of air in her ears, as though flying at top speed. When she opened her eyes, she was much lower to the ground, and her injuries no longer pained her. After inspecting the fur and tiny paws of her new squirrel form, she scampered up a tree to observe. She had polymorphed just in time. She heard rustling nearby that grew louder and louder, and Samil saw a group of humans come out of a tangle of underbrush and stand directly below her. She twitched her tail angrily. It was the humans who had attacked her yesterday. Samil fought the urge to transform right then and there. The forest was too closed in. She couldn't maneuver well or take to the air. Better to watch and listen. "That's odd," said a dark-skinned human, bending close to the ground. No, not completely human, Samil realized. The pointed ears and slender build marked him half-elf. He was the one who had shot arrows at Samil. She stifled a squeak of indignation and bent down to listen better. "The dragon's tracks end here." The half-elf straightened and looked around the forest. No more tracks, no more broken branches. It couldn't have flown away through those trees. He pointed up in the direction of Samil, where she sat observing the group in a thick tangle of branches. "That's ridiculous, Elrit," said the armor-clad human. "You must be reading the tracks wrong. How could a dragon just disappear?" "If you read it half as much as you fought, brother," said a white-robed female who Samil recognized as the wizard from yesterday, "you would know that these creatures can change into others. The dragon is here. It just took another form." The humans looked about the forest, and Samil ducked into a hole in the tree. They couldn't find her here, but her little squirrel heart pounded. She would wait until they had moved on, then transform back and leave this horrid place. She had not expected to be hunted in this world of humans. "That's what makes the dragons so tricky," a new voice joined the three. "They can take any form they wish. You never know where they may be hiding. We must find this one and capture it." Samil peeked through a crack in the tree, and this time could not contain her squeak of surprise. The new voice belonged to the girl who had stared at Samil with such hate. The girl turned toward the tree, and Samil froze, forgetting for a moment that a layer of bark hid her from the girl's sight. A glimmer of colored light caught Samil's eye. She looked closer at the girl and nearly lost her grip on the bark. The girl wore the other half of the pendant that Smill's mother had given her. Smill gave them a high-pitched chitter. She had found the humans responsible for her mother's injuries. How else would the girl have the same necklace? The humans all looked around, but still couldn't see her. Smill forgot the lack of cover, forgot that she was in a tree, forgot that she was outnumbered. She transformed back into a dragon, sending bark and leaves and limbs everywhere as she exploded from the trunk. The humans all cried out in surprise, but recovered their wits quickly. The armored human drew his sword and advanced on Smill. She swiped at him with her claws and knocked him into the shrub. His armor had protected him, however, and he was soon back on his feet. The wizard was digging into her pouches with a look of concentration, and Smill knew that in moments she would face more arcane weapons. The half-elf had drawn his bow and aimed an arrow at Smill. She inhaled and exhaled quickly at the humans. They fell back, coughing. Smill tried to call on her lightning breath, but it still was out of her control. Roaring in frustration, she swung her tail in a wide arc, knocking the wizard to the ground. She had to get the girl with the necklace away from the others. What was so valuable to her that was worth the life of a dragon? Looking around at the trees, Smill calculated her escape. If she could break through the line of humans, she could fly away as soon as she reached a clearing. The girl was small. Surely Smill could take her and get some answers. An arrow whistled over Smill's back. The half-elf was shooting at her wings. If he hit him, she would never be able to fly. Smill lowered her head, folded her wings tightly, and ran at the girl in blue. The violet eyes widened in shock as Smill galloped toward her. The girl started to duck out of the way, but Smill was too quick. She ran into the girl at full force, knocking her to the ground. The girl cried out, but Smill could not tell if it was in pain or surprise. Smill clamped her mouth around the girl's long braid and the back of her robe. The girl beat Smill with her fists, but it had no more effect on the dragon than a gnat would. Arrows clattered against her back, making Smill very glad she had tucked it in her wings. She would have to spread them soon, though. Smill ran to the clearing as swiftly as she could, with the human clamped in her mouth. The girl wasn't too heavy, but she was bulky and certainly not cooperating. The trees opened up above her. Knowing that the humans might have kept up with her, Smill took a chance. She spread her wings, leapt mightily with her back legs, and wrapped her front legs around the human as she took to the sky. The human screamed, sending off a ringing in Smill's ears. "Stop that!" Smill mumbled through a mouthful of hair and cloth. "Or I drop you." The girl quieted. Smill tightened her grip and pumped her wings, trying to gain distance from the ground. She would never get any answers if she were to drop the human. Smill couldn't move her head much, but she managed to glance downward. The humans fired arrows at her, but they were out of range now. They might track her, though. They had already found her once. Smill studied the slopes of the mountains. There had to be a cave somewhere. Flying toward a high cliff, Smill spotted a crevice that could only mean one thing: a dragon's lair. She hoped whatever dragon might call it home wasn't around, because she needed it right now. Smill flew to the crevice and landed on a rocky ledge, careful not to let the human go. Unless this human possessed the gift of flight, there was no escape. The dragon lair entrance set back from the ledge by perhaps 10 or 15 feet, giving enough of a flat surface that Smill could land and put the human down. Smill said to the human, "I am going to let you go. There is no way down other than if I take you myself. Do you understand?" The human nodded, or at least Smill thought it was a nod. She wasn't sure if nodding meant the same thing for humans as it did for dragons. "Speak!" she barked, worried that the human couldn't understand her. The human whispered yes. Smill spat out the girl's hair and robes. The girl scrambled away from her in the wrong direction, almost to the cliff edge. "Be careful!" Smill warned. The human looked behind her at the long drop, shuddered, and moved to huddle against the cliff wall, as far from both the lip of the cliff and Smill as she could manage in that small space. Smill guessed that she couldn't see the dragon lair entrance, for it was hidden behind a spindly tree and a lip of stone wall. Smill casually moved to block the girl's view of the wall, so she couldn't move past. The girl just watched Smill, fear in her eyes, even stronger than the fear, That hatred still burned there, too. The jewel that had so confused Samil glittered at the girl's throat. "Why did you take me?" the girl asked suddenly. Her eyes darted past Samil, looking more suspicious. "Why did you want to capture me?" Samil retorted. "Because you're a dragon," the girl spat. "Therefore, you're my enemy." Samil glared at the girl and snapped. "Well, at least we're agreed on one thing." And that is the end of chapter 6.